Nina, I'm sorry, but our hands are simply tied. My teams can't support you right now.
Really? Lucas, you promised me. Seriously, you guys from marketing? That's just outrageous. I've had enough now. God damn it, you're getting on my nerves.
Nina! Nothing like this has happened to me in the last 20 years. My name is Nina Neudorf. I've been working at Krohn as the sales manager for 5 months. I manage 3 teams, 15 people. And I have to say, I'm glad I can go to the mediator today, to Ms. Sudani, because things just can't go on like this. I mean, I was promised so much and, well, not much of it was actually kept. And now there's been a conflict with the head of marketing, Lucas Lang. Honestly, you could write a book about all the things he promises and doesn't deliver. It's about time we address this. Yes, it is. Hi, I'm Lucas Lang, and right now I'm on my way to attend a mediation session with Ms. Sudani. I am currently the head of marketing, specifically for central marketing at the company Gron. Yes, I am genuinely curious to see whether or not this mediation process will actually accomplish anything significant. Something quite serious happened recently after Ms. Neudorf, in front of the entire team, became very aggressive towards management and confronted me very loudly. In 20 years, I've never experienced anything like that before. That is really not the culture in our company. That's why I'm curious to see if this mediation will actually help. I'll just wait and see what happens.
We have just met them, the 2 main parties involved in this conflict. They are both employed at Krohn, a medium-sized company based in Biel. This company produces and sells watches and measuring instruments in the higher price segment. It has about 1,000 employees. Miss Nina Neudorf has been working there for 5 months. She heads the sales department. Mr. Lucas Lang has been with the company for 20 years. He heads the marketing department, and as we've seen, they have a problem with each other. This problem is to be resolved with the help of the mediator, Ms. Esther Sudani.
Good afternoon, Ms. Neudorf. Good afternoon, Mr. Lang. I warmly welcome you both here to my mediation office, and I am pleased that you have found your way to me, not just geographically, but also that you have both decided to participate in this mediation in order to resolve the issues and conflicts you are currently experiencing at work together in a constructive way.
Before we begin the actual process, I would like to give you a brief overview of mediation as a conflict resolution tool. Mediation is a structured, voluntary process for the constructive and interest-based resolution of conflicts. A typical feature of mediation is that an independent, impartial mediator supports the parties involved in their conflict. The mediator guides them through the resolution process. The parties to the conflict are also referred to as medians. They try to reach a mutual agreement that meets their needs and interests. The impartial mediator or mediation team does not make any decisions of their own, but is solely responsible for guiding and conducting the process. Whether and to what extent a mediator actually makes substantive solution proposals themselves varies depending on the approach to mediation. Traditionally, mediation is divided into several phases. The first phase is about agreeing to mediate. The goal here is to clarify the framework conditions, the roles, the process, and the ground rules. The second phase is dedicated to gathering the topics. All topics that shape the conflict should be identified and defined so that they can be discussed later. Third phase, identifying interests. This phase is about making the backgrounds, needs, and motives of the parties in conflict visible. This is a central phase in every mediation. This is followed by the fourth phase, which focuses on developing solution options. These options are developed together in a creative way and without judgment at this stage. And in the final fifth phase, an agreement is reached, which is often referred to as the final agreement or mediation settlement. And in this phase, the goal is to work out such an agreement. There are different types of mediation, distinguished, among other things, by which areas of life are affected. For example, there is family mediation, neighborhood mediation, mediation of administrative disputes, and what we're focusing on today, business mediation. Here, we're dealing with an internal company dispute. There are also business-to-business disputes which are handled somewhat differently. In theory, and mostly in practice as well, we're talking here about internal company mediation. In the following video, we've presented a textbook-style structure of mediation, although we do shorten certain phases.
I've already had preliminary talks with both you, Ms. Neudorf, and you, Mr. Lang, where I also explained how mediation works. And I've also already had a clarification meeting with your supervisors and Mr. Keller from the HR department. Everyone is concerned that you will be able to work well together again in the future, despite this reorganization. And I would still like to briefly go over a few very important points regarding mediation, as well as my role and approach and how you can interact with each other here once again. Briefly explain them. You are here voluntarily, even though that's sometimes not so easy in a work context, because you also feel a certain pressure and expectations from your supervisors. Nevertheless, from the preliminary discussions with you, I have heard that you are very willing to participate in this mediation. For my part, I am here for you both equally. It's important to me that you know this, and if at any point you get the impression, for example, that I am more focused on Mr. Langmuir, or you think I am more focused on Ms. Neudorf, then please let me know. That is not my intention. Exactly, mediation is confidential. This means that you should not share any details from these conversations we are having here around the company. You have already told me before that this is very important to you because you want to be able to continue working well in the company in the future. Nevertheless, at the end of the mediation, we will also agree from what will be passed on to your supervisors. There is no need to mention any details. They just want to know that things are running smoothly again. But we will define that in detail again at the end. Who will do it and so on. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Does that work for you? Of course, I am also bound to confidentiality. That means I won't tell anyone that this mediation is taking place here. And of course, that's self-evident. No content will be shared. If I take notes, it's only for myself, so I can organize my thoughts and remember what you have said. I'm also a bit of a translator for you because you've probably experienced, even in the past, that communication hasn't really worked anymore, that you don't really understand each other or don't feel understood anymore. That has happened to you a few times in the past weeks, and today I'm here for you to help with that, so that things work better again, and that's why communication might sometimes slow down a bit. And I've also heard from you that you wish the other party would really listen again to what you actually want to say, to what matters to you. That's why I'm asking you now to really listen attentively here. And you have 2 notepads in front of you. If you ever feel the urge to say something, just jot it down or write down what the other party just said. That also helps with listening attentively. If that doesn't always work out, which is common in conflicts and not surprising, I would like to ask your permission to interrupt you, if necessary, while you're speaking. Is that okay?
Yes.
It's not something you would typically do in your everyday communication, but here, in this situation, we're actually in a slightly different situation. Good. Exactly. And at the end of this mediation, we will hopefully be able to reach an agreement that includes all the points you've mentioned or that are important to you. And incorporate them into an agreement. And before we get started and talk about everything that has happened and your perspectives, I would like to ask you, if we manage to get there in a good agreement that works for both sides, how would you like to affirm it? So is it enough for you, for example, if you have the flip chart and receive a photo record from me? Would you like to sign this photo record? Or would you prefer to have a written agreement in the form of a Word document? Or would you like to do it with a handshake? Or some people even open a bottle of champagne. What would work for you?
Well, at the moment, I would really like to have it in writing, in a Word document, so that I know that this is what was discussed.
For me, the photo record would definitely be important, with both of our signatures.
But not just a plain one, possible agreement.
So I think you'll get both. The photo record with your signature, of course, but also a written document. I'll send that to you afterwards so that it's documented. Okay.
Good.
Great. Yes, and you can imagine at the moment, I can also imagine that it's still difficult right now to think about a good agreement. We're still a bit away from that at the moment, and to reach an agreement, you'll also need afterwards ideas, suggestions, options, possible solutions. And to be able to develop these solutions again, it's really, really important that you truly understand each other and understand what matters to you in your situation, and that you can also comprehend the different perspectives. And that's why I ask you now, you can negotiate in a moment who would like to start, but that you each explain how you experienced the situation, what was important to you in it. And from that, we will then afterwards generate the topics that you will discuss here today, and which will then be clarified between you. So who would like to begin?
Well, I would like to start. That
Is a beginning for me.
Mr. Lang, is it all right with you if Ms. Nudorf starts? Yes?
it was also important to me that we do this mediation. That's why I would like to start. Yes. And where should I start? I mean, I've been at this company at Krohn for 5 months now, and I'm there as the sales manager. And I have to say, I just didn't have a good start. There were things I didn't get that were promised to me or that turned out differently at the beginning. So let me give a small example. No, not a small one. We now have an open plan office. I found that out during the job interview. That really wasn't an issue at all, honestly. And, well, I mean, especially when it comes to sales, it's just not something that was a problem, not in any way. I mean, sales is important. We know they're the ones who bring in and generate the numbers. And if you can't sell, then marketing can say whatever it wants. And marketing promised to support us, I'll put it that way, with these posts, these social posts. Lucas, let's be honest, you said you and your team would support us. And now my team goes there and there's no support. So how do I look in front of my team?
There are reasons for that too.
Mr. Lang, feel free to take some notes so you don't forget what you want to say in a moment. So we were simply promised things that aren't being kept. And you can't work like that. I also look bad in front of my team. And now I'm having trouble with my team. Of course, they also feel... I have to say, I'm doing well. I've already worked in sales for 15 years. I did a good job there. So I know what I'm doing. And that's just not possible here now. With these conditions that keep changing, I don't even know what I'm responsible for. So I'm really not happy with this at all.
Miss Nudorf, may I try to repeat what I have understood from you so far?
But I just had to get that off my chest. Yes.
No, thank you. That's actually the point of these perspectives. It's good that you're sharing this with us. So what I have understood from you is that you joined this company 5 months ago. And that during the job interview, you had a very, very good impression. You were shown a nice office. But when you started, you suddenly found yourself in an open plan office. There was a reorganization going on. And the collaboration between marketing and yourself was not as you had expected. And so, from your perspective, marketing did not stick to agreements, especially when it came to social media posts, as I just heard. And all this tension and the situation have also led to you, of course, having uncomfortable situations in front of your team, and that this is especially stressful for you.
Absolutely.
And that the team is also under pressure and stress is... Yes. And before this, as I also heard from you, you were very successful. You had already worked in sales for 15 years. And what you enjoy doing in your work isn't really possible here at the moment.
Exactly, exactly. And it's also not clear who is responsible for what. So
In this reorganization, they are responsible within your two departments, but also in terms of collaboration, things are still not clear enough. Or there are different ideas about it.
What we're about to see is the application of a very important technique in mediation called paraphrasing. By summarizing, a negotiation or conflict resolution process can be structured much more effectively. This is also called speaking, mirroring or paraphrasing. And it means that the negotiation partner, or in this case the mediator, repeats in their own words what one party has communicated. By summarizing or mirroring in this way, it can be ensured that a party is correctly understood by the listeners. The negotiation partner or the mediator can then have the accuracy of their summary confirmed. From the perspective of the party expressing themselves, the summary by the counterpart also serves to check their own statement. And summarizing allows the person being mirrored to calm down, because a negotiation usually means a stressful situation. If there is a conflict, the stress is often particularly high. When the narrators feel understood, it calms them down. Furthermore, mirroring enables the person telling their story to view and reconsider their own narrative from a greater distance, almost from a meta level. It allows the person telling the story to reflect on their own actions and possibly recognize other aspects of the problem. The mediator can also intervene to de-escalate by rephrasing evaluative or hurtful statements from a party into neutral language. And that's called rephrasing or reframing. However, this often overlaps with mirroring or paraphrasing.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ms. Nudorf. Now I'll turn to you, Mr. Lang. So how do you see the situation?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I do understand. I understand Ms. Nudorf's position at the outset. A lot had already been decided before she arrived, as far as the reorganization is concerned, and everything had to happen very quickly. So it certainly wasn't an easy start, that's for sure. And the fact that sales has always seen itself as something better was already an issue before, but it hasn't improved since she arrived either. And the fact that marketing is ultimately seen as just taking orders from sales, because sales brings in the money and the revenue, that was already the case before, and it hasn't gotten any better now. Yes, and when I look at my team, we've lost people due to the reorganization, because some tasks were supposed to be transferred to sales, for example. My team is absolutely stressed out, and of course I feel that pressure as well. So there is a strong expectation from my team that things will change and improve again. And when I look at the social media posts, that's definitely a topic that should really be much more in the hands of sales, because that's where the knowledge is, they have the content. And in the case of reactions, or if a quick response is needed on social media, so it's rightly placed there. And yes, it was really only meant as a temporary arrangement that marketing would help out here. But as I said, my team is in a very difficult situation. Yes, and for me, the most important thing is simply the scandal that then happened. In fact, in 20 years, I have never experienced anything like this, being spoken to in that tone, at that volume, in front of the whole team. And then on top of that, by someone who was just newly hired. And I have to say that really hurt me, surprised me, and left me irritated.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Lang. I'll try to summarize what I've just heard from you. You also noted that Ms. Nudorf did not have an easy start, that being in the midst of this reorganization was a challenge. And at the same time, you perceive that for you, nothing has changed in the relationship between sales and marketing. If I understand you correctly, your wish is that your work is also recognized and acknowledged, that people see your work as important, including for sales. That's still something you're missing a bit, that
Understanding? Yes, simply being on equal footing.
you would like to work with sales as equals. And at the moment, you still feel like you're just taking orders, as you put it.
Yes, I can deal with that. I've been doing it for 20 years, but it would also be nice if something changed in that regard. I am already New people taking on responsibility.
Taking on responsibility since we're already sitting together here. At the same time, your team is also under pressure because due to the reorganization, which, if I understood correctly, was also done as a cost-saving measure, you have lost people. There is enormous pressure. And sales should take on more, especially in the area of social media. And at the end, you mentioned something else. There was a communication situation between the two of you in the presence of your supervisor. Is that correct? And there was what you called a scandal, so to speak. It got louder. And you also found the tone to be hurtful, offensive, and inappropriate. Yes, but I would like to...
Yes, of course, Ms. Nordorf.
We will talk about that in a moment. I think this situation is really a very, very important topic. And we will get into more detail about it in a moment, and then you can say everything that is important to you. I can see that this is also affecting you emotionally, very...
I would like to explain how it came to this.
Yes, exactly. You have your good reasons for how it came to this.
Yes, absolutely.
We will listen to those in a moment. I'm still here with Mr. Lang right now to really get his perspective again.
Naming emotions or verbalizing corresponds to reflecting or paraphrasing, but with a special focus on the emotional and affective aspects of perception. So when someone is highly emotional, it is indeed very important that the mediator in these situations can contribute to an automatic calming by respectfully verbalizing the emotional state. And this, we see this verbalizing here in various examples by Ms. Sudani.
And that hurt and offended her, that's what happened.
Because it was disrespectful from my point of view.
Yes. And they also mentioned that they were particularly offended that it came from a person who was new to the company and didn't yet know how things actually work in companies.
Yes, that was a bit of our culture.
Yes. They say that's not part of the company culture. Yes, I notice questions. Yes, no.
Yes, they will one day.
Patient. Yes, exactly. Before we get into those details, I'd like to try once again to listen or to get directly to the point. What concerns them both are in part similar topics that you have just mentioned. And these are the very subjects which we will now work on together in greater depth. And I think there are certain similarities, and of course there are also differences between them. Would it be okay if I try now to summarize what you both have mentioned and what I've noted down? I'll write it down here on the flip chart so that we can go into more detail later. Because I also sense a certain impatience from you.
But I would like to be able to say that.
Yes, of course. Yes, yes.
It sounds as if I have no culture. Yes, if you think about it.
No, Miss Nudorf, I very much assume that you had your good reasons. And you did. A preliminary conversation. You also explained why it happened that way, and we'll get to that in a moment.
We are now at an important point in phase 2 where the goal is to actually visualize the list of topics. And it is very important that this is also made visible graphically for those involved. The topics mentioned by the parties should be described in broad terms in order to keep as many possible solutions open as possible. Furthermore, the topics, as they are written down, should be as valuable as possible. They should be presented without judgment and remain neutral in relation to the parties' positions. B. With this visualization, for example, here on a flip chart, it is ensured that nothing is forgotten. And the parties can be certain that their own topics will truly be taken into account.
Yes, so what both of you mentioned is this reorganization, which in part has also reduced resources, and where your teams are also under a lot of pressure. And which has also made it very difficult for them to get started. That is, to begin their work at the company. So let me summarize it like this. You can let me know in a moment if that fits, if we need to rephrase anything or if something is missing. We'll take a look at that in a moment. So reorganization and connected to that, their difficult start. And then you also specifically mentioned certain agreements regarding the use of social media, including how it is managed and shared online. I heard that from both of you. Then there was also the topic of implementing campaigns, which was somehow an issue as well. And Then there was this particular incident which occurred at that one specific meeting. It was a moment where both of you became quite emotional, expressing your feelings openly, and which, as I mentioned, we will discuss further in just a moment. Now you see these topics here. And now I wanted to ask you again, is there anything missing? Should we add something? Do we need to remove anything? Or do you feel that this is fine as it is? That once we've talked about all these things and really gone into detail, you'll be able to express yourselves. And then we'll have the chance for you to come up with good ideas for a solid agreement. Yes, I think everything is included there.
Well, for me, some things really belong together.
I'm just wondering who does what, but I guess that falls under this reorganization.
Reorganization. And then these two subtopics, social media, campaigns. Or also, this just came to mind, would the understanding of roles between marketing and sales still be a topic?
Yes, so when talking about reorganization, who does what is particularly relevant to me, especially in my case. And in that sense, what does marketing do and what does sales do?
Because you also mentioned, yes, they feel a bit like they're just following orders and they would like to see more work done at eye level. Is that true for you, Ms. Nude? Should we include that?
Yes, that's right. If we include that, I'd just like to add what concerns me about that.
Understanding of roles, sales and marketing. Yes, thank you very much at this point. Now the question is, which topic would you like to start with? What would make sense there? You already mentioned it earlier. Well, they're somehow connected, but we should start somewhere.
In this phase of mediation, it's important that the parties are able to express their own wishes and that any additional topics for discussion can be identified from that. And for that, it's helpful to let both sides have their say first. Once all the topics have been identified, you can, as Ms. Sudani is doing here, address the order in which they will be handled. Thanks to the listing of the topics, each party can be certain that the points they raised have been recorded and will be discussed during the negotiation process. By formulating and recording them, the conversation is intended to become more objective. This way, the parties are less likely to get lost in a tangle of arguments. And when choosing the order, it is advisable to start with those topics that concern the relationship level, or to let the conflicting parties choose the order themselves. Once clarification or at least a calming of the relationship level has been achieved, it becomes much easier to reach an agreement on the substantive issues.
So the reorganization is the foundation, and then, so to speak, the other end is clearly connected to it. They simply belong together for me.
Yes, and I would like to briefly mention at this point my perspective on this dispute.
Yes, that's something you're eager to say. Yes, that's burning. Exactly. All right, if that's okay with both of you, then let's start with that. And maybe that will lead to other things coming up, things that concern the other topics. And maybe afterwards we can see in which order we want to address the other topics. Whatever makes sense there. And some things might just work themselves out. Does that work for you? Yes. Good. Which topic would you like to start with?
So reorganization, clearly for me, that fits together very well.
Yes, I think so too. I'd also like to jump in on this dispute that Lucas mentioned again.
And it's still really weighing on both of you.
Yes.
All right, then let's start with the incident. We can also determine the order of the other topics and how we address them as we go along, since they're all connected and dependent on each other. So I'd suggest we just start with this topic now. The incident in the meeting. I'll ask you again, just like before, which of you would like to start?
Well, I have to say, I'd really love to start because earlier I already felt the need to share my perspective, and I'd really like to say something about it.
Yes, exactly, Ms. Nodorf. It was already burning on your mind just now, and you're letting her go first. Thank you, Mr. Lang.
Yes, because he said that's part of the culture, that he hasn't experienced anything like that in 20 years. I have to say that's not really my way either, to lose my temper like that, but we had an agreement. Marketing would still support us in sales with social media for the time being. And that's what I agreed on with him, with you, when you said, okay, we'll help you. And then my people went to marketing and they said, we don't know anything about it. And I mean, of course, that makes me look bad too. And I have to say, that makes me lose trust in marketing, or more specifically in our relationship, because I have to be able to rely on you. And reliability and a certain structure are just important to me. It stresses me out when I don't have that. I'm also new here, so I need some support so that I can feel comfortable. That's really important to me. And I want to do my job well too. My people, I mean, I lead 15 people, and of course they matter to me as well.
Exactly right.
In my team, yes, your team is important to you as well.
Close to your heart.
Ms. Newdorf, let me try to summarize what I've heard from you so far. And I can see, Mr. Lang, that you also want to respond to this. It's very important to you. You just said that normally what happened there isn't really your way of doing things.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And at the same time, you feel very stressed because you got the impression, Mr. Lang, and that his team doesn't stick to the rules.
Exactly.
And reliability, as well as having a clear and well-defined structure in which you can comfortably and confidently operate, are extremely important to you. Otherwise, you tend to feel quite stressed and uneasy.
Yes, exactly.
And you also want to do your job well. Yes. And because of these incidents, you have also, to some extent, lost trust in Mr. Lang. Lost
Trust. I mean, I also know that it only works if marketing and sales work together. But for that, you need agreements that everyone can stick to.
Thank you, Ms. Nodorf. Mr. Lang, you've listened patiently so far. What have you heard from Ms. Nudorf just now?
Well, I have to say, it's not in my nature either to not stick to agreements or to not follow through. That's just as clear to me, to keep agreements, just as it is for me. It's also clear to me that respectful interaction should always be maintained in every situation, even when things get difficult, and that we should meet each other as equals. That's simply a clear prerequisite as well. And yes, as I said, I didn't just break an agreement on a whim, but because our team, or in this case my two teams, really reached their limits. We, as I said, had reductions. The number of people, then there were also cases of illness. We still have many topics to work on. And my team has consistently told me that we can't support sales the way it was planned through the reorganization. And I was simply confronted with this situation. And of course, I talked to my team that there is an agreement and that we have to stick to it. But well, if it keeps coming up again and again, then at some point I also have to. Team and department heads, my team leaders came to me. And as a department head, I also have to draw my own conclusions at some point. And I simply presented this very objectively at the meeting, but it was received in a very unobjective way from my point of view. And at that point, I would simply wish for a different way of dealing with this situation and not just insist on agreements.
Mr. Lang, you just described that. Actually, you also find agreements important in collaboration. That's important.
Yes.
And that respectful interaction with each other on equal footing is also important to you. That's important. And regarding this agreement, where Ms. Newdorf just explained that she got the impression you did not stick to it, you yourself say that although you normally adhere to agreements, this was a very special situation because your team was under massive pressure. And due to illnesses, also due to departures caused by the reorganization, and that the team was simply not able to adequately support sales.
Exactly as we would have wished. And in the long term, it should be handed over to sales anyway. But of course, for now, it was still important. Of course, it would have been important to provide support, but we simply didn't have the necessary resources for it.
And did you express that in this meeting?
Yes, very matter-of-factly.
And you presented it in a matter-of-fact way? Ms. Neudorf, you just said, yes, that was sudden. So your team went to the marketing team and then it was just kind of brushed off. That's how you just described it.
Because we didn't have that information. Well, I was only confronted with this in that meeting, of course, in a factual way, as Lucas said, that's true. But if I'm only finding out about this in that meeting in front of management, how does that make me look? My employees, they didn't know about it either. We weren't included in this whole thing at all. And at that point, well, to use a Swiss German expression, I'd had enough. That's when you lost your temper. Exactly. Yes.
And now, just to repeat, you just explained that you didn't know anything about this agreement or about the situation with Mr. Lang's team, that they were under so much pressure. And you only found out about it from Mr. Lang at that meeting with the supervisors. And that made you very angry.
Exactly, that's how it was. And I also realized that if I had known about it, maybe things would have been different, because then we could have talked to each other.
So just to clarify, Mr. Lang, you would have wished that Mr. Lang had told you about it beforehand, that he had explained the situation to you, come back to you after you made this agreement.
Exactly. Or asked, how should we solve this now? We agreed on this, I know that, and now it doesn't work. What do we want to do?
You would have been willing to solve this challenge together. Mr. Lang, you just listened to Ms. Neudorf
speak. Yes, I mean, Nina, when you say beforehand, of course, I tried until the very end to convince and motivate my team to stick to the agreement. But it just kept coming up again and again in a persistent way. No, Lucas, you have to stand up for us there. And of course, the team leaders were also the ones who were confronted with this. And that's why, yes, at some point, I just had to give in to the pressure. Yeah, God, maybe I should have just said even more clearly, no, an agreement is an agreement, and team leaders, you'll have to deal with the situation. But then, yes, at some point, I just caved in. And then, of course, it was right at the last minute before this meeting. And that's why there was no beforehand.
Mr. Lang, may I come over to you for a moment? And I kind of get the impression that, yes, certain things maybe still aren't being addressed quite openly. And I'd just like to take the liberty of speaking on your behalf for a moment. You can then say afterwards, yes, that's true, that's not true, that fits, that doesn't fit. I'll just stand next to you and speak as if I were Mr. Lang. And I'll address you as Nina, if that's okay with you. Could I just try that out for a moment? And then you can tell me afterwards if anything has changed.
From my point of view, I've said everything you wanted to say.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Nina. I've heard from you that it really, really stressed and disappointed you that my team wasn't able to do it the way we had agreed. I also want us to have a good working relationship. But I have to be honest, I'm actually a really reliable person. Agreements are important to me. And I'm almost a little ashamed that I didn't keep this agreement, and that my team simply said, we're not going to do that now. And I thought it would be enough if I mentioned it at the meeting. And I'm actually really sorry that this happened. I wish it had been different. But we're both under stress here.
So I still feel sorry about it. But shame means something different to me. But I'm sorry that you try your best until the very end, and sometimes things just don't work out. I'm sorry about that. But feeling ashamed would be going too far for me.
Ms. Neudorf, if it is all right with you, may I please step up next to you again and do the same thing for you as well, just like before? When my team came back to me and told me, hey, marketing doesn't want to support us with the social media posts. They didn't know anything about it. That's when I really reached my limit. I thought to myself, I'm already fighting so many battles here. I have to find my way in this company, in a new job, in a new role, right in the middle of this reorganization. A lot of things are unclear. And when you told me in that meeting, in front of both our supervisors, that you still couldn't support us, I just lost it. And I'm so sorry, I truly am. I'm sorry that this happened. Ms. Neudorf, does that about sum it up?
Yes, that actually sums it up very well, because honestly, I really didn't want to get that loud. But I honestly couldn't help it. Yeah, I really couldn't.
I'll go back to my seat now. Now that I've tried this with you, has anything changed for you?
So far, Nina hasn't given the impression that she was sorry about it. Now, just recently that it happened, this is the first time I'm actually hearing that from you, so to speak.
Yes, this is also the first time I'm hearing about this stress on your side. I wasn't really aware of that. And yes, I can say in this context that I'm sorry I was so loud, because that's really not my way.
That's
Good. Exactly. And now it's about this situation with these agreements. What would you like to say about that now? Is there anything else that's weighing on your mind regarding the agreement at this point?
What follows now is a brief discussion of what is still weighing on the parties' minds. And in this sense, it's already a kind of preview of what will be done more thoroughly in phase 3, where the aim is to systematically identify the interests and list the needs of the parties.
Well, I would really like to please be kept in the loop about what you just said, especially the part that I missed. So if you notice that you're getting pressure from in the end, we're both in the same boat. We work for the same company, and that's extremely important to me. Also, since I'm new, it's important for me to know if you can't support us there. And then we really need to figure out together how we're going to do this, how we can make it work.
yes, but for me it's also really important that we meet each other at eye level. But since marketing is always treated like an order taker, it's always just marketing should do it no matter how. And for me, that's a prerequisite. In the past, it hasn't worked out either. Openly talking about our problems just didn't happen. Instead, it's always, that's what marketing is for.
But the past wasn't with me.
Well, I've now heard from both of you, and you both said that you're really under a lot of stress, under significant pressure, starting something new, going through a reorganization, having only a few resources, and working with fewer employees, that all of this is really causing you stress. Apparently, you each deal with this situation differently. You just said, yes, structure and reliability are important to me. You can function well when you know how something is structured and how you can interact with your environment. That is extremely important to you. And you just said, Mr. Lang, that you really wish to be able to work at eye level, that you find it difficult to communicate when you always have the impression that you are not meeting each other as equals. And we also just heard, well, you talked a lot about communication now as well. Maybe we will, or I think we will come back to that at the end when it comes to making agreements. So how do you want to communicate in the future? If situations like this happen again, because you have a challenging work situation and new stressful situations may arise again in the future. We're still on the topic of the incident that happened at the meeting, just to be clear. Does anything else need to be said about it at the moment? So that you can move on to these other topics regarding the reorganization and so on. Is there anything else that still needs to be said?
No, I have said what I wanted to say at this point in time.
It's nice to hear an apology now. And I hope, Nina, that you understand why I only mentioned it at such short notice. Only at the meeting.
They also regret that things turned out this way.
Yes, I regret it. I would have preferred it to be different, for the team to still find a way.
The perspective or chair change aims to adopt a new perspective. Typically, this is facilitated by so-called circular questions. These are specific, often hypothetical questions that challenge the assumptions and perceptions of those involved. For example, imagine that, or let's suppose that. This can, for instance, prompt one party in a conflict to put themselves in the other's shoes and answer a question from the other person's perspective. The aim of such a change in perspective can be to include additional aspects beyond those previously addressed.
Yes, Ms. Newdorf and Mr. Lang, you have both now described your perspectives on how you experienced the meeting and especially the incident. And apparently it was quite emotional for both of you. And at this point, I would like to try something with you. And I don't know if this will work, but maybe you are willing to try. And afterwards, you can tell me whether it was helpful or not. And it would go like this. You would both switch seats and try to see things from the other person's perspective. Step into their point of view. Would that be okay with you? Would you be willing to try this experiment?
Yes.
Well, it can't hurt, so let's see how it goes.
Exactly. You can tell me afterwards whether it was helpful. Yes, and now at this point, I'll come over to you, Mr. Lang. You are now officially Mr. Lang. Let's go back into that meeting for a moment, right now. And both of the supervisors who were in attendance were present at the meeting. And you had already been talking with your team beforehand. It was about the social media posts. And could you describe how you experienced that meeting?
Yes, that's difficult now. So as Mr. Lang,
Exactly. So at some point you said to Ms. Newdorf,
that's not possible.
it's not possible.
We can't do that. Precisely for this reason, because I am also responsible for my employees. And I have to protect them now because they have so much to do.
They're at their limit with the whole reorganization. Yes.
And I told her that quite simply and matter-of-factly, and she was not pleased.
Yes. What happened then?
Well, she raised her voice and, quite visibly upset, left the meeting in frustration.
And how did things go for you after that?
Well, I was then alone with the management, and of course that wasn't very pleasant. And that tone also hurt me. That really hurt her. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I'm actually a bit embarrassed about it. Yes, I feel uncomfortable now about what happened there.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Now I'll go over to Ms. Nodorf and ask Ms. Nodorf. Ms. Nodorf, how are you? Over there? How did you feel during the meeting when Mr. Lang told you that his team, the marketing department, can't handle the social media posts at the moment?
Let's hear from Ms. Nodorf. Yes, I definitely need certain principles for working. Things like structure, a strong sense of trust, careful planning reliability, and a high degree of predictability. And that just really... It genuinely surprised me when Mr. Lang said it so completely unprepared, at least from my perspective.
And what happened then?
I became angry, and as a result I raised my voice, not caring at all about what the others around me might think or how they would react to my outburst.
The supervisors were there too, right?
And I stood up abruptly, feeling frustrated, and stormed out of the room in a huff, making it clear I was upset.
So you were really caught up in that feeling of anger.
Yes,
You really lost your temper there. Yes.
that's one way to say it. I didn't care what others thought about it. Yes. Yes, that's actually how I felt, to be honest. Thank you, madam. No, Doc.
I now ask you to return to your seats. How did you feel when you heard the other party to the conflict, Ms. Neudorf, describe the situation from her perspective? How did you feel when Mr. Lang described your perspective as Ms. Neudorf? Did that have any effect?
Yes, it definitely made me feel happy. I had the strong feeling that Lucas truly saw me. He really understood how I was feeling, and that recognition feels genuinely good.
Yes. Mr. Lang, what effect did it have on you when you heard how Ms. Neudorf empathized with your situation?
Yes, well, I was also genuinely surprised at just how accurately she managed to capture it. I think in terms of what I feel, and I was actually a bit surprised, perhaps even a little taken aback, that she could see so well that we in marketing, or in this case I myself, was still under pressure from the team members, from the team leadership, and that honestly surprised me because it really didn't come across that way in the meeting, in the actual meeting, or even before.
That was new for you? Yes. Are you at all surprised that it was actually new for him, seeing this particular side of him now, at this moment in time?
Yes, I think now we tend to show more what we think anyway. So I can certainly imagine that, yes, absolutely.
What is now different for you? So what happens after we've done this experiment?
Well, I think there is actually more understanding for each other than it seemed before. In the meetings, even before that.
Yes, that same too. So now you understand better why the other person behaved the way they did? Yes. Good. Would you like to add anything else right now at this point about this incident at the meeting?
No, it's fine for me.
Yes, it's just better to say something beforehand. Exactly. What is it then? Yes, what the topic is. Yes.
All right, then I suggest we move on to the next topic. Yes, Ms. Neudorf and Mr. Lang, we just collected these topics and have now also discussed the incident at the meeting. And now the question is, what would you like to continue with?
For me, the agreements are still on the table. For me, yes.
You think it would be important to address these agreements now?
Yes, but that's still not settled. That's still up in the air now.
Yes. So you don't want to start with the reorganization and Ms. Neudorf's onboarding yet?
For me, these agreement matters are also the main priority. We've already talked about the reorganization. That's just... The question there is, how do we get to the point where we know who is doing what? But I also think, as Lucas says, I'd like to take another look at these agreements.
All right. SO agreements regarding social media. Do the campaigns count as part of that too?
No, campaigns are a separate topic. Of course, they sometimes have social media components, but it's about more than that.
All right, yes. Do you know the question? Who would like to start?
Yes, well, I can go ahead.
Is it all right with you, Ms. Neudorf, if Mr. Lang starts this time?
I'm happy to say something about the card, just to express what my basic need is. Agreements fundamentally need to be kept. That's also my basic need. But that's also no reason, so to speak, to approach things disrespectfully or to make disrespectful remarks because of it. And that's simply what I would wish for, from a needs perspective. That we can always meet each other at eye level. A certain degree of flexibility is needed. That's also a basic need for me, something that goes along with it. When everyday life simply doesn't allow it anymore, that you can then talk flexibly about agreements. But for me, fundamentally, it does mean that agreements should be kept as well as possible, at least to start with. Exactly. And you, Nina, already mentioned it earlier. I can now better understand and fully appreciate why you might have lost your temper during that particular meeting, but in the future, I would very much like us to handle this situation quite differently.
Yes, Ms. Newdorf, would you like to say something about what you just heard from Mr. Lang? Yes.
Well, once again, for me, it's important that when agreements are made, people are reliable about them, that I know who I'm dealing with, like in a partnership where trust is a key element. And if you realize that you can't keep that agreement, you should talk about it instead of just sitting it out and waiting. Otherwise, you end up blindsiding other people in a way, hurting them. And that's what happened here too. Reliability is very important to me. That builds trust.
Yes, Mr. Langen and Ms. Newdorf, we've just talked about this incident in the meeting, and you've already managed to create a bit more understanding for each other. But there are still a few other topics on the flip chart, like reorganization and Ms. Newdorf's situation. The agreement regarding social media and the implementation of the campaigns. Which one would you like to continue with now? What makes sense to you?
From my point of view, the agreements are still an important topic that hasn't been fully resolved yet.
Yes, I see it the same way.
You see it that way too, then. So the agreements about the social media posts are very central for you right now.
Yes, because they ultimately led to this scandal. The reorganization, we're right in the middle of it, and it actually affects exactly these issues.
All right, who would like to start?
Well, I can go ahead and say something about how the agreements actually, how the idea even came about that the sales department should do more social media posts. Of course, it's fundamentally the job of marketing to communicate through various channels, which actually includes social media. But we really don't have any content for social media at all yet. And everything there is much more short-term, much closer to the user. And of course, sales is closer to that. And the idea was simply that sales should naturally be much more involved. Also to take over social media posts, because that's where the content is created, that's where the proximity to the customer is, and also where you need to be able to react quickly. That was the origin of the idea, and I still think it's the right approach. Nevertheless, of course, marketing also has to support with communication know-how. I also think that's important, but for me, the purpose and intent of the agreement still hold true.
Yes, so Mr. Lang, you just explained that you find the idea that sales or distribution, that sales is handling the social media posts actually makes a lot of sense to you personally. You are closer to the action, you can react more quickly, the social media world moves fast, and you actually lack the content. So you can't really generate anything just sitting at your desk. You see yourself as providing support in this area as the marketing department, but you see the lead with sales. Yes, Ms. Newdorf, what?
Do you think about that? Well, I mean, yes, this statement, we see ourselves as supportive. That's not really how we've experienced it last time. Yes, I think we in sales are, of course, close to the customer, and that's what we're good at. And we don't have the know-how for things like social posts, like marketing does. They have much, much more experience in that area, and I think they're good at that, and we're good at sales. And there, yes, that's where things kind of clash.
So you see your role in sales as being close to the customer?
Yes, exactly.
That's also the reason why you say that. These social media posts should be made by sales because you're so close to the customer. And at the same time, you say that we lack this know-how. I mean, that's a whole different kind of
know-how. And I mean, if you can't do it, just think about how much time it takes. It's also a matter of time resources, so it's a resource issue. So
you're saying your sales team actually doesn't have any time for this?
Exactly, and the know-how is missing.
And
the know-how is missing. To really create good posts, they have to be good after all. I mean, we order good equipment and sell great watches. So, I mean, that has to come across as well.
Yes, so you want to do this professionally as well. And for that, you say you need support from Mediation. Mr. Lang, when you hear this now, that Ms. Neudorf, as head of sales, says we're lacking there, the know-how. And what was the other point again? I can't recall it right now. The time resources, exactly, the time resources and the know-how are missing. So what do you say to that?
Of course, I can understand that. At the same time, in marketing, the time resources have already been reduced. That's why positions were lost, because it was clear that social media responsibility doesn't lie with marketing. Responsibility for that is not with marketing. That means we don't even have those positions anymore. And yes, of course, the know-how is with us because we've already started working with social media in the past, but not to the extent that's now being planned. So yes, we do have some know-how, that's true.
So both of you have now shared your positions. I'd like to ask again more specifically, why is it important to you that marketing handles these social media posts for you?
So that the professionalism is right. And so that we have enough time for sales, which is what we're actually here for. Those 2 points.
So that you can do your job well?
Exactly, that's right.
And Mr. Langwell, why would it be particularly important to you for sales to effectively handle the social media posts and engagements?
Ultimately, it's about responsiveness, seizing the moment, and delivering truly engaging content. If we manage everything ourselves, we have to request content, we have to understand the content, and we have to post it. If we're supposed to respond to something, we have to ask follow-up questions again. That creates a lot of inefficiencies. It's double the work, and it doesn't benefit either side.
And why is it truly important for you to consistently generate engaging and timely content for your audience?
You know yourself how much social media content is out there, and you really have to stand out. That really takes a certain instinct, and that's something the sales team especially has. We're not as close to the customer and don't always know what's happening or what might be interesting topics right now. Those topics might not even be relevant by next week. That's not our time frame.
So being fully up to date, or perhaps more accurately, quickly staying completely informed, why is that truly important to you personally?
To really get the maximum impact out of social media posts.
And the maximum impact, what does that mean?
The maximum impact is, of course, lots of likes, that the posts get shared. And if your social media posts sound like they're just following a pre-made editorial plan, they don't have any effect these days. You have to seize the moment.
So the maximum impact in terms of visibility. Sorry, if I could just stay with Mr. Lang for a moment. What is this maximum visibility actually for? Is it important for the company?
You know yourself what situation the company as a whole is in. Sales figures have gone down, and we need to come up with new approaches. And the way traditional marketing has worked in the past, we need to take new paths there. But that also means a reorganization of responsibilities.
So the economic success of Chrono is also important to you?
That's ultimately behind everything. That's why we're doing this whole reorganization, and we need to do it as quickly as possible.
Miss Neudorf.
I can agree with that. I mean, we want to increase our sales figures. The most important thing is that our company, Chronos, survives and that we can work well. We are 1,000 people.
Yes, exactly. So the economic success of the company Cronen is also a very important concern for you. If I come back to your statement again, yes, we lack the know-how, and that's why marketing should handle it. Why is it important to you that marketing does this or supports you? I also picked up from you that there are different options.
So if marketing could provide us with resources to support us so that we know how to create and generate good posts, then we would have the know-how for that as well. But at the moment we don't have it. That's just what I would claim right now. I mean, by now I know my employees as well, and marketing is simply more experienced in that area.
So to further boost economic success through social media, you say you need support from marketing, and you say we need this closeness between sales and the customer.
Yes. So actually we need both, something from each other.
From each other, yes, exactly. You need something from others.
And with resources that aren't available.
Yes, or with few or reduced resources. In a stressful situation of reorganization. Yes, Ms. Nudorf and Mr. Lang, we've just talked about the incident at the meeting, about the agreement regarding the social media post. You have also stated your position on what you think would be good. We've already taken a step towards your interests and needs when I asked you, why is this actually important to you? And now I'd like to next collect these interests that you mentioned, like, for example, economic success and so on, and see what are your interests, and which might even be shared interests. And then based on these interests and needs, we can later look at what makes sense in terms of the agreements for how you will work together in the future. Does that sound good to you?
Good, yes, that works.
Great. Yes, I remember a few keywords. I'll bring those up, but you'll have to help me out a bit. With everything you already mentioned earlier, maybe there will be even more to add. So, I remember you said that reliability is important to you.
Yes.
I'll write that down here on the left. Reliability.
And agreements in that sense?
Yes, exactly. Reliability in terms of agreements.
Yes, exactly right. And the overall structure. So that kind of really goes hand in hand, doesn't it? It's quite fundamental.
Yes. So the agreements you make also provide a certain structure to your work. Mr. Lang, what did you say again that was important to you?
Respect and being on equal footing are two very important things for me.
Respectful interaction, that's what I call.
Respectful interaction, yes. And interaction on equal footing.
Interaction on equal footing. Maybe I should take another quick look at my notes. Or is there something else that comes to mind, something you already mentioned?
So regarding the social media topics, the point was really that we achieve speed, achieve quick response times.
And also greatly overall efficiency.
Yes, economic success ultimately.
Exactly. I think you both mentioned that this is important to both of you. I also noticed in my notes earlier that you mentioned flexibility. Could you explain again what is important to you about that?
Yes, that was regarding the agreements. When we realized that we simply couldn't stick to the agreements, that marketing would continue to handle things for now, that's when I wished for a certain flexibility. That's how it was back then.
So you have structure and you have flexibility.
But
Then I find myself having a need again that you also communicate it when you want flexibility and not just you might find out about it completely by chance or perhaps quite suddenly, so that you can do it all together as a unified group.
Am I understanding this correctly? So open communication and a collaborative attitude would be important to you?
Yes. That you can also understand when you have agreements and don't stick to them, that there needs to be something in between.
as I said, I tried until the very end to handle it differently with my team or with my team leaders, but it just didn't work out. And of course, earlier communication also means allowing the department to see more of your hand. And of course, that also requires much more trust in each other, which in the past, it wasn't always rewarded positively when you let others see your hand.
Yes, not for me either. So trust is important to both of you as well. I remember you mentioned that before as well. You too.
Yes, definitely.
Trust or trusting collaboration, or how would you like to call it?
Yes, trust is enough for me.
Yes, and also that information, when I know something isn't misused by the other department, is... I've also experienced situations where a weakness was exploited to shine in front of management with one's own department.
But you didn't experience that with me, did you?
No.
Yes, that's right. The question is always what one understands by trust or by working together in a trusting way. And you just gave an example. That information isn't used elsewhere to your detriment. That's important to you. We'll come back to that later when we define how you want to shape your collaboration in the future. That this is part of your understanding, not using such information for other purposes. And you pointed out again, yes, that's an experience you've had in the past. It doesn't have anything to do with you personally. Yes, is there anything else you mentioned? What would be important to you in that regard? What your needs and interests are?
For me, those are the essential ones.
For me as well. You also just mentioned speed, that it has to do with economic success.
Oh, right, yes, quick response time, that's true. It's good to have that written down again because that's actually the reason for the agreements, that social media posts are mainly handled by sales.
Yes, and that works for you now? We'll take a look at that in the next phase in a moment. You both have mentioned some needs that you share. So trust, economic success. And you've also mentioned needs that differ from each other. So, for example, structure. You mentioned structure and you mentioned flexibility. And then the question arises, how can you create structure in your collaboration while also maintaining flexibility? Under what conditions is that possible? We'll address that in the next phase in a moment. Is that okay with you? That's fine. Yes, Ms. Neudorf and Mr. Lang, we have just thoroughly gathered all of your specific interests and essential needs based on the discussions you just had. And there was, on the one hand, reliability, on the other hand, respectful interaction, on the one hand, structure, on the other, flexibility, interaction at eye level, economic success, and responsiveness. And also open communication, a sense of togetherness, in other words, an attitude of collaboration based on unity, and mutual trust as well. Some things came from you, some from him, and some came from both of you. For example, trust and economic success. Now, the point is for you to develop solutions together. And it has proven very effective to start with a brainstorming session that is not yet limited in any way, but is open and free and is based on your interests and needs. And I would now like to invite you to simply say, unfiltered and without commenting or judging, whatever spontaneously comes to your mind. And I'll just write it down for you.
So I would confidently state, just off the top of my head, when it comes to all aspects of social media, marketing should completely handle that entire responsibility. It's supposed to be spontaneous.
Spontaneous, exactly, absolutely. So if anything is possible and allowed, then I would suggest, for example, Ines in your team, she's very into social media. I know that she's really into it. So, for example, someone like her could take it on directly in the sales team, someone who is really enthusiastic about it and can handle it accordingly.
Marketing effectively introduces potential sales opportunities over an extended period of time, thereby initiating the customer journey. Just going with their gut feeling for half a year. Marketing is still responsible, with the understanding that we'll hand it over to sales, but we're taking our time so the posts come out well.
That's the transition phase?
Yes, exactly.
So what I could also imagine is a kind of coaching for different sales employees. The idea was actually that all sales employees would basically become editors, social media editors, and that we form tandems, someone from marketing, someone from sales, and that we would in this way introduce everyone so that you can get up to speed as quickly as possible, so to speak. Gain the competence to carry it out yourselves.
Now, if I move away from the posts for a moment, I find that because for me it was like this again, we then made agreements. And if it doesn't work out, how do we communicate with each other that we would have meetings, say once a month, where sales and marketing, doesn't have to be everyone, but maybe representatives, can exchange ideas and see where we might be able to support each other?
Yes, definitely regular meetings. It's just the managers, though. The employees don't have to be there. Not necessarily, but all the team leaders should be. Sales and marketing should meet regularly. Let's see if once a month is enough, considering everything that's always going on with the dynamics. Probably more often, but as I said, my team members are already complaining about the workload. That means I can't add more meetings, but it's still important.
There's still something that's been on my mind a bit. So you also spoke about the crucial concept of mutual trust. And looking back on that specific situation that happened during the recent meeting, you clearly said, yes, I would have genuinely expected Mr. Lang to talk directly to me. So this topic of communication, how do you see it here?
Well, I think that through these regular meetings, it's definitely already being addressed in the sense that we frequently know where we stand, where the department stands, and where each team stands. That already helps, but yes, bilateral communication between the two of us is also important. We only see each other otherwise at the management meetings.
That
Is probably not enough either. Maybe we need to coordinate more between the two of us.
Does anything else come to mind?
Well, especially with regard to this retreat that we have coming up. We have a change manager who organizes it, so we'll definitely sit down together again and take a good look. Where do we stand and what do we need next so that we can somehow determine the topics?
So a preliminary meeting with the...
Are you considered a dedicated change manager in your organization?
Yes, I just naturally assumed that would inevitably happen anyway. But for me, these are mainly solutions that we then continuously integrate into our daily routine. Even if I don't see some of them as so feasible right now, but for now it's just about collecting ideas. For me, these would be the important solutions. So that everyday work, well, I believe some of these solutions have the potential to help us work together better in our daily routines.
Good. I'll wait a few more seconds. Maybe something else will come to mind that might be important right now. Yes, we've now collected various ideas from you in a brainstorming session about how you can improve your collaboration. And now it's about evaluating these ideas from you. So which ones do you find particularly good? Which ones do you find less good or less realistic or feasible or whatever? And now you can assign a score to each individual idea between 1 and 10. And 1 would be really bad, so not realistic at all, I'm completely against it. And 10 means, that's great, I agree immediately. And that's what we'll start with tomorrow, so to speak. And then you will immediately assign the points, or I will record them for you, your evaluation. And then we'll talk about it. If, let's say, there are big differences, how do you come to an agreement on what will be done and what won't? Or maybe some things are pretty clear because you rate them the same right away. Yes, you've now taken a moment of time and quiet to evaluate the ideas you just developed. And I suggest that now both of you share what your evaluations are. And let's start here with the first marketing idea, creating a social media post.
Yes, well, that idea was mine, and I only gave it 2 points because I know it's heading in a different direction. But I still thought it was kind of funny.
I actually only gave it 1 point.
Still, it clearly shows that you both genuinely seem to agree that this is no longer a truly realistic option. Here we also have marketing introduces sales to posting with a transition phase.
Yes, well, I really gave that a good full chance, actually exactly 8 points.
And you, Miss Neudorf?
Yes, I gave it a perfect 10 because I truly think that's really the only proper and accurate way we can truly properly assess it. Ensure that we retain the know-how.
Yes?
I think so too.
So there seems to be a lot of agreement on that as well. Transition phase, that's still very vague. I'm always an advocate for very clear agreements, but we can take a look at what that means in a moment. Then there was also your idea, I believe, Ines. Someone from sales creates the social media posts. How did you rate that?
Well, I only gave it 6 points myself because it does make sense to spread the responsibility across several shoulders very quickly.
Yes, I had similar thoughts. I actually only gave it 5 points. I think Ines would actually do a really good job with it. I already know her a little bit now, and yet we all have to. Otherwise, we'll end up being dependent again. I also think that's the part that's not so great about it.
Then there was the idea of coaching tandems between individual representatives from marketing and sales.
For me, 6 points.
Same for me. For me, the issue was the time resources. If everyone then, if they're paired up in a tandem, do I then have to go to that person? I can't do that, so not anymore. But the idea...
It ties up too many resources.
Yes, exactly.
I'll just jot down that thought next to it. Then there was this idea of bilateral meetings between the two of them.
I've given that an 8. I think it's important. Very important. I'm leaning a bit more towards the front, but I rated these joint meetings higher because I thought it's important to involve a lot of people in a reorganization so that it works better. So that's why only an 8. But I only find it
important here. Of course, you always have to keep in mind that these aren't either or solutions and ideas, but in some cases can be combined well.
Yes.
I also gave it a 9.
Exactly. And of course, just like up above, the question arises of how often and for how long and so on. Then there are these joint meetings, which you already mentioned, between sales and marketing, mainly with the team leads together with you.
Yes, I gave that a 10.
Yes, an 8. Some team members aren't too happy about having even more meetings, so it takes motivation from our side, especially from the team leads, because they already have to attend so many other meetings as well. Exactly. There was another idea here, which might be on a different level, but is still important. Preliminary discussions with the change manager. The retreat.
Yes, absolutely.
So a 10.
Yes, that's a 10.
Yes, interestingly, your ratings are actually quite similar. So I don't think there are any numbers that would contradict each other. And for that compelling reason, I believe we can confidently transition and actually move forward to the crucial next phase now, which specifically pertains to the comprehensive and definitive final agreement, a pivotal stage where all parties involved will collaboratively and jointly determine precisely how you collectively wish to proceed and move forward together in a harmonious and effective manner. Before we do that, I have another question, because you are not working alone. That has already become clear several times. You mentioned the team leadership. Who might have any objections to one of these ideas?
Yes, as I already said, one of my team leaders, specifically the number of meetings, that it might become too much, too frequent, and so on. There has already been some pushback about that. Coming up with a solution like that is not necessarily welcomed.
So it will probably take significantly more effort to successfully get them on board.
Yes, I actually feel the same way. I have 2 specific team members in mind who felt very much alienated and quite excluded by the recent marketing efforts and strategies. Like the social posting we've already explained a few times now. And I think getting them properly on board, because they also haven't been part of these processes or conversations, I think that's an important part of my job.
I'd like to include that here now, or rather later on when we make the final agreement, that you also involve the people concerned. That probably belongs to the ideas you still need to flesh out. Include them as well. I also mentioned at the beginning that we still need to address how your supervisors will be informed, who will do it, and how. So I suggest that we now take the next step and put this down in writing. Yes, based on your brainstorming and the evaluation of the ideas, we are now moving on to the final agreements. And it's always important to be as specific as possible, because otherwise, of course, there will be different interpretations. What does transition phase mean? What does regularly mean? And I would first like to invite you to take another look at this brainstorming and say which solutions are now out of the question. Which ones would you like to exclude for now?
Well, I mean, the top 4 all relate to social media, and 3 of them are rated lower. So for me, marketing continues as before is out of the question, and so is Inez. And coaching talents is also out.
Exactly.
Do you see it the same way?
Yes, exactly.
And then you see that the idea is for marketing to take the lead. Sales would be included in posting. In a transition phase, which would still need to be defined, then that would be the premium.
So to actually utter.
Exactly. I genuinely believe that the transition phase would realistically need to be at least a full half a year. Primarily because, of course, we don't always have the immediate time or resources to accomplish everything perfectly and efficiently right away. So a solid half a year to a full year would be a much more appropriate and practical time frame.
Yes, and Lucas, to use your words, let's keep it a bit flexible as well. Let's say 6 months, and we'll see, because we have the meetings, so we can check where things stand.
Yes, we can look at it monthly to see if that's enough.
Yes, exactly.
But that way, I have the chance to make it clear to my team that the transfer will happen, but they'll need to be patient, and that's where their patience has run out in the past.
And I can tell the team a promise is a promise.
Exactly. So you want to, at least that's what I gathered from your discussion just now, introduce the bilateral meetings. And these joint meetings with the team leads together with you. And then always take a look at where we currently stand in this coaching process, so that we can support each other, mutually support one another. So I'll just draw some arrows here. It's like an ensemble.
And for the joint meetings, it's important to me that we set a cadence right from the start, so at most once a month, so that the teams don't get overwhelmed.
Yes?
So the team leads should meet once a month, but not more often.
And we can meet more often.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So did you also have a monthly rhythm in mind for that?
If more often, then definitely short meetings just to quickly do the lateral checks. I think 30 minutes would already be
something, absolutely. But I think it would be good for us to be aware of it, because I think that's what led to this whole argument that we said, hey, why not half an hour every 2 weeks? So that we somehow notice if something, or I say I need, also that if we notice I have a need that I can tell you, then we just do it earlier on.
Yeah, good. We know where we sit for things. That's not a problem. But officially, so that we actually take the time for it every 2 weeks. And at a fixed time, every 2 weeks for half an hour.
Yes.
Then I'll note it down like that. Every 2 weeks for a period of 30 minutes, this activity regularly takes place.
Yes.
Exactly. And then you also mentioned that with the team leaders, we have to be a bit careful to make sure they're included along with all their employees. It's not just the team leaders. What ideas do you have for how you could approach that?
Well, we also have team meetings, just in sales, I would say, so that the current status is always clear, like an agenda item, reorganization, how are we doing, where do we stand, that I definitely include that as an agenda item in my team. I include it in the regular meeting.
Yes, it's mainly about clarifying details that come up for everyone so that they can be discussed as well. After all, not everything has been clarified down to the last detail at the employee level yet. Of course, that needs to be clarified there by the subject matter experts.
I'll bring that up again as a term. Team meetings, that they also put a focus on that. Then there's also the preliminary discussion with the change maker for the retreat. If I heard correctly at the beginning, the team leaders will be present at the retreat, right?
Yes.
Exactly, that is precisely and absolutely what I mean, without a doubt.
Do you want to implement that? So do both have a score of 10?
Yes, I think the most logical first step is to simply find a suitable date and then set up a formal appointment. I am confident I can accomplish this, especially since I have the necessary member contact information, which allows me to easily get in touch with them. Together we can then collaboratively look for an appropriate date, so we can clearly determine what this important retreat should ideally look like.
Yes, that's good, absolutely. I completely agree with you on that.
If you look at it again now, have you now noted down everything important for you?
I would say yes.
If we implement it like this, really, then that's already a big step forward.
Yes, towards building trust.
Yes, I mean, we have to still discuss it with our team leaders as well. We can't do it without them, but at least I see a chance that they'll understand why we're doing it this way. But they're mainly the ones carrying it out. They have to participate in the meetings. And that's why we also have to get them on board with the
idea. And I think if they see that the two of us are pulling together, it'll be easier than if they feel like we're fighting against each other. That's really important to me.
Yes, and I already mentioned right at the beginning that it's also important for us to consider how your supervisors will now be informed, what they'll be informed about, and by whom. And yes, what comes to mind for you when you think about this agreement, the ideas you've now established, and the next steps? What would be appropriate for you in that regard?
From what I know of them, I don't think they want to be let in on all the details. I believe what's important to them is that we were able to talk to each other and that we found ways to work together. A few lines in an email would almost be enough. So I don't think they need a detailed report right now.
I would I see it the same way. I think I would write about what we are planning in the sense that we want to hold joint meetings in the future. And also because it's actually quite important that marketing really supports sales during this transition period. So I would mention that, but I would also keep it more like a summary of decisions in just a few sentences.
There was still a concern about whether this retreat can actually take place in 2 weeks or not. Would you say you can also inform the supervisors about that? Or do you think it's still a bit tight and we should postpone it?
Well, if it genuinely goes precisely the way we initially agreed upon,
and that is indeed a firm and standing agreement that remains valid, then I truly think we can most definitely proceed ahead with it. Yes, absolutely.
I think it's a good time because that way the team leaders can also express their opinions again, and not in the sense of rehashing everything, but so that they have the chance to share their views with the others as well. We shouldn't wait too long for that.
All right, but it's still not clear to me who will inform management. All right, I'll do it.
I can do that, no problem. I'll draft a few short emails. I'll send them to you again, and then I'll send them to management.
I'll just make a note of that. Mr. Lang will meticulously draft a comprehensive and detailed email to the senior management team outlining the critical points and necessary information, and subsequently send this important communication to Ms. Johnson for her review and final approval before its official distribution.
Neutroth, the renowned scientist.
Good. Yes. Now, at the beginning, you mentioned that it was important to you to have a signature on this flip chart from you, and you also requested that a Word document be created from it. I think that makes sense, since this flip chart was created as a work in progress, and it's always nice to have it properly documented afterwards. I will send that to you afterwards. But now I would ask both of you to take a pen, maybe in different colors, or choose the color you like. This one is brown, that's also brown, and this would be light green. And then please sign there.
The conclusion of the agreement happened a bit quickly here, but that can certainly be the case in a real situation as well. However, it often takes a bit longer. For reasons of time, we presented this phase a bit more briefly.
At this point, I would like to sincerely thank you for your trust, for coming to me, and for everything we did together here. Thank you for your participation. I wish you all the best as you put this into practice in real life. All the very best to you. At some point, I will get in touch with you again. In the next 2 or 3 months, I'll check in again to see how things are going and whether we might need another meeting together. Maybe there was something here or there that came up, so perhaps some kind of follow-up or evaluation is needed. So where do you stand now? For me, it's always good and important to see that as well. And I would then contact both of them to arrange an appointment. Would that be okay with you?
Yes.
Thank you so much for your support.
Yes, you're welcome. Mr. Kulta. Wonderful. Thank you, I'm glad.
So we have seen an example of a successful mediation that could be concluded with a mediation settlement or a final agreement. This is the formal conclusion of the mediation. However, a follow-up check often takes place, and in this case, Ms. Sudani offered to do that. In this particular case, the follow-up check showed that while implementing the agreement was indeed challenging, especially for the two teams, with the help of the change manager, many of the issues that arose during the subsequent retreat could be addressed effectively.